Hello and welcome to Boring Dad Gaming, where today I'm going to be taking a look at another demo that's currently featured as part of Ludo Narracon. This is Mask of the Rose, which is the new visual novel coming out by the people behind games like Sunless Seas, Sunless Skies, etc. So obviously a developer with a great track record in writing story and narrative and making them interesting, a little bit spooky. But this is an interesting departure for them. This is, as I said, a visual novel. They describe it as a romance with a hint of murder. So I'm expecting, strong story, but there's sort of undercurrents of something darker at play. Just to quickly say also that I'm going to put the link to the demo, the store page, in the description of this video. It is coming out pretty soon. I think it's early June. It's due, so it's around a month's time. So hopefully this is fairly close to what the finished product will be. A quick word about the settings. Usually I like to get because my native resolution is not the one that's friendly with YouTube, so I like to sort of change it to that. But as you can see from the settings, there is not a lot of options. So I apologise if the screen ratio on this video is less than optimal. But anyway, let's dive in and let's see what this is all about. In February 1862, with no warning at all, London fell through the surface of the earth. I believe they did a game called Fallen London. I think it was there on the main screen. I've not played it, but maybe this is probably in that same kind of storyline. This was meant to be a year of progress and industry, the Great Exposition, trams, a new sewer system. Instead, we find ourselves dwelling in a cave. It's October now. The fires have been put out. The bodies have been buried. But the future remains unimaginable. The time before impossibly distant. The past. Who were you? We could be an arcane academic. I studied esoteric writings, the hierarchies of spirits, the language of angels, the practical powers of creation. I have friends in high places and am familiar with the church's ways, whether I agree with it or not. We could be a dock worker's child. My father worked the docks unloading ships. My uncle was a sailor. We were on the right side of the law, but the same could not be always said for our friends. The docks are allied with the working class and criminals. Okay. Alright, so this is kind of where it ties into the story. So friends in high places, familiar with the church. Allied with working class and criminals. Oh, okay, so this is one of two. Let's go with the arcane academic. That's me. Down here, your name is whatever you say it is. Often there's no one left to remember who you used to be. Some people hold tight to the names they carried before. Some reinvent themselves completely. So I prefer strangers to address me as... Monsieur. There's quite a lot, isn't there? Okay, so we've gone through. I think I'm going to be Professor. It kind of fits in with our sort of arcane student type background, I think. Though my friends call me Boring Dad. That suits me. It actually does suit me down to the ground. That's me. Boring Dad to my friends. Professor to strangers. One of these statements is true. That's how I was addressed. Oh, okay, this is a choice. That's how I was addressed before London fell. I'm a different person down here than I was above. Down here, I'm finally able to use. Down here, I'm finally able to use the name that always fit me. I have become Boring Dad. Okay, so we can choose a silhouette. Our features don't get filled in. Let's see. Well, we're going to be male, so that'll cut things down. What do we like? I quite like that. You know what? I think I'm going to go with this sort of slightly artistic, laissez-faire sort of thing. Or I could go with the absolutely cracking beard and moustache. That's quite a magnificent moustache as well. Let's go with this. We're going to go with the magnificent moustache. That's me. In the Neath, a true ally means everything. When I find people to be close to, I am looking for. That's both romance and attraction. Heart's desire, passionate romance. Yeah, let's do it. I'm happy with this. Right now, I'm meant to be helping with the census, finding out who still lives in my neighborhood. The first census results are due tomorrow. If I turn them in, I get paid. The first money to come my way in nearly 2 months. If I don't, I'm going to disappoint Grizz badly. She knew I was in trouble, so she went out of her way to find me work with her own employers. She even gave me a badge to show my affiliation. Badge of the Ministry of Accounting and Recounting. The front of the badge looks almost like a constable's badge, with the lion and unicorn blazoned on it. The back of the badge has some kind of symbol I don't recognize. Hot to the touch. Mysterious. I keep it with the clothes I have from before the fall, and a few odd items I found more recently. Okay, change your outfit. Okay. This is not a very sophisticated look, so my hat... I guess we'll go with the mushroom hat. Grand, exotically trimmed, and very much a recreation of the Neath. Wearing this hat when courting always inspires me with additional flirtatious things to say. Looks good. Face. Barefaced currently. Okay, maybe we can discover new things to wear and maybe like facial hair or piercings or tattoos, whatever. Without decoration. Or we could wear our badge. It's the same description. Looks great. Torso. I guess we'll go with the academic gown, huh? I earned it the hard way. I mean, you know, that's just amazing, isn't it? That's just really attractive. I think people will be falling over themselves to date us. Grizz. Ah, I thought you were up here. She glances at the badge I'm wearing. I suppose I should be glad you're thinking about the census, even if you didn't get around to leaving the house. I react to that the way I react to many things these days. I turn it into a joke. Probably a dad joke. I thought I'd wait for a change in the weather. A lovely snow, perhaps. There's no sunshine down here. There are no yellow pea soup fogs. There's no rain, except occasionally a fine mist. Londoners lost half our topics of conversation when we fell, and that is probably the true tragedy. Come tomorrow evening, we need to have at least a few census forms filled out, or I'm going to be the one explaining to Mr. Pages. And if that happens, I'm not going to help you out with your employment prospects again. Grizz works for the Ministry of Accounting and Recounting. It seems to agree with her. She wears trousers to work and comes home at all hours. It's very important to her, being taken seriously by these employers. The next thing I do is characteristic too. Let's rely on dark humour. Did your employers say whether I should also interview the squid-faced men? Or are they not included in the census? I believe they were invented by the newspapers, but if you happen to meet with any, by all means record their names. What about the talking crows? Consider yourself at liberty to include any creature capable of telling you its name or occupation. What do you think of the questions? I haven't read the questions yet. I've only glanced at the sheet of paper. They're written in the most peculiar spiked handwriting, and there are punctures in the paper, in random spots. Ask her what put these holes in the paper. Why does this page look like this? Do your employers know how to use a pen? Of course. Here, try the questions on me. Say you've just knocked on the door, and I have come to answer it. Yes, what do you want? Introduce myself as an agent of the ministry showing my badge. I can do that because of the clothes I'm wearing. I trust you're well this evening. On behalf of the Ministry of Accounting and Recounting, I have a few questions. Oh, how lovely. I am so grateful these ministries are looking after us. Let's just read out that first question. How many people live in this establishmentation? Establishmentation is not a well-formed word. It has two suffixes, both Latinate. Thank you, Professor. If you like, you can, translate into questions that are more likely to be understood. Right. How many people live in this establishment? 4. The landlady, Miss Horatia Chapman, a young man named Archibald Reed, myself, and a 4th character, very disreputable. Point out there used to be more lodgers? A reduced number, there used to be others. I know, but there's no point in... We don't know what happened to them. It's possible. I tell myself it's possible that they were spared this, left behind on the surface. Maybe there's a second London, up there, going on about its business, never noticing that some of us vanished. Okay, read the next question. Is anyone in this establishment enamorificated or impassionated? What does this even mean? They're asking if anyone here is in love. Just ask that. Is anyone here in love? No. I ask if she's sure about the landlady, Horatia Chapman. No. Oh, sorry. What about Mrs. Chapman? I wouldn't assume that she's too old for such feelings. I hadn't considered that. Grizz is always telling people not to make assumptions. She hates to be caught making those assumptions herself. At this moment, a second visitor walks in. Archie is a medical student. He hadn't finished his training before the fall, but he has plenty of work now. Hey, I wondered where you were. Point out that he could knock before entering my room. It would have been more courteous to knock. I'm sorry about it, Dad, but something has happened. I went this morning to visit a patient. I gave him a Scottish voice because of his name, but actually it seems like he is Scottish, judging by the T. I went this morning to visit a patient, and what do I find pasted up on the wall? He holds up a broadsheet. There is a new decree from the Ministry of Cartography and Chirography that all maps and atlases are to be surrendered or put on the fire. Is your folk making these rules, Grizz? I'm going to suggest that the masters, whoever they are, aren't trustworthy. Naturally, the masters don't want us to have maps. If our charts are any good, we'd be able to see what parts of London survived. We might have a hope of understanding what's happened to us. Hey, there's a good deal of sense in that. No, there is not. There's a good deal of nonsense in it. You'd be asking your Mr. Pages about these maps. Mr. Pages expects some loyalty from his people. None of us knows what's safe down here in the Neath. Most likely there are reasons you can't imagine. Boring Dad, please do collect at least a few census forms by tomorrow. At the end of the day, I'll find you and we can take them to Mr. Pages together. Do you know what I miss the most? Back home, my sister's hair turned colour when it rained, blonde to a wet plastered brown. Like a mad hen she looked. Ask him a census question. Grizz has me gathering census pages for the ministry. Aye, Grizz told me it was some such thing. Archibald Reed, matters of the heart. Oh, okay. Let's start with employment. Put the query, making it clear this is for the census. We're not going to flirt with Archie. What should I put on the census as your overall employment? Hey, I did sell off a couple of my old atlases just today. Censored maps sell for a good price if you know the right buyer. Ferret's vermin eradication takes in more than just the rats. Ferret's shop. Rats, moles, spiders, destruction and disposal. Ferret is the local menace eradicator, and there's significant need for their services lately. Are we done with this foolishness? Census question. Matters of the heart. Ask making it clear this is for the census. The census asks whether you're in love. Down here? Nah. What about before the meiotic cataclysm? Hey, there was a lass back home, and what did me mother do but promise me to her? Suggest you might prefer a more local alternative. That sounds a long way to go to be finding a bride. Might be there's someone better suited here in London. Well, I never had much nerve for courting. Maybe no one down here would take the fancy to me anyhow. Oh, that's everything I need. Aye, sleep well then, will you? 231. Is that days since the fall? Days since the... exactly that. Season of confessions. Continue. The newspapers aren't what they used to be, but someone is still printing broadsheets these days. This morning's lies open on the table. Ministry of Accounting and Recounting offers extra rations in exchange for old pound notes. Feels very much like they're forming a new society down here, doesn't it? Okay, we've got things at the bottom. I'm just... Oh, okay, that's... Oh, okay. Recall the past. Change outfit. Head outside. Apologies if you hear the dog moaning in the background. I think my wife's just returning the car, and he can hear her coming from all the way down the road. And it's only her car he reacts to. I don't know how he does it. But we're going to head outside, right? Boarding house. What's that? St Albans Proto-Martyr. Or the Ferret Shop. Let's go to Ferret Shop. That's the new one we can go to. Collect census information from the Menace Eradicator. Good morning. Ferret doesn't look straight at my badge, but it's been noticed all the same. Everything's all right and tight here. Regular inspections and all that. We pay the constables their due. We can introduce myself flirtatiously to Ferret, the exterminator. Giving cautious rein to my sense of humour. You must permit me to present myself. Boring Dad. I am human. Once I walked under the open sky. If you can't say the same, I beg you at least not to reveal your monstrous form and appetites too precipitately. I suffer from a weak heart. Ferret, but you could see that on the shop window. Pleasure to meet you. Bargain for that red wig behind the counter. Where's that? Can't see it. I don't have any money, so it'd have to be a very good bargain. A second-hand prison jacket. Inquire into the particulars of the rat-catching profession. Is business good, then? Oh, I've been rat-catching and mole-killing for many years now, but I've never seen a business like this. There's demand for the eradicating of the beasties, and demand for their bodies when you've done 'em. So the wages have never been so good, but I don't get much competition as you might expect. Though it stands to reason, considering what one finds in a rat nest these days. If you ask me, in a year or two we'll need more than a terrier to catch rats with. Might need firearms. How have the rats changed? What's different about the rats now? Hungrier, aren't they? There used to be a city's worth of scraps, and suddenly London's scraps aren't worth the having. They'll come out bold as day and take a loaf off a man's plate if you aren't careful. You hear stories, don't you, about rats getting so eager they'll gnaw on an infant in its crib. Panic. Panic. Oh, that worries me a little. Truth to tell, I haven't been called on to deal with any chewed-on infants that weren't already deceased. Unsavoury subject, innit? Well, we'll do the census question, shall we? We've got name. Maybe that's not his real name, though. I'm not going to be rude or flirtatious. Let's do it for the census, shall we? What should I put on the census as your full name? Ferret's the only name I go by. No one saw fit to tell me if it was a full name or a surname. Might have come down from a noble house for all I know. Courtesy of my great-grandsire and his wife, Lord and Lady Stokeweasel. Yeah. Let's do another census question. Employment. Yeah, well, this is going to be our census one. I meant to write down what your employment is, though I can see that you catch rats.
Yeah, the money's in rats, moles and spiders, like it says on the sign. Which, now I notice, you can't see. The spiders is new. Used to be most people was happy to hit 'em with a slipper and be done with it.
Yes, I'll set another question. Household organisation. There's a spot on the census to write down whether you live alone.
What's it to them? For all you know, I might keep a dormitory full of vermin-killing apprentices. Like my master did with me for enough years. Took me out of the chimney-sweeping trade and put me at rats instead.
Another question. Matters of the heart. Ferret, tell me your innermost desires. What should I put down about your romantic attachments? For the census, that is.
Strange thing, but I don't fancy sharing those particulars with your masters. It's my shy and delicate nature, innit? Might put me to the blush if those things was to become known.
Let him lead the conversation. I think we've asked all our questions now.
That form, do you have to put on it whether a person is a gentleman or not?
Say there's nothing on it about gender. Doesn't ask anything about whether the person is male or female.
Oh, that's good, yeah. Can't say I've ever liked answering that one.
Oh. Really? Okay. We could push this one a little more, I suppose. We could ask let's try asking flirtatiously, shall we? Tell me you're not married, Ferret. My heart couldn't bear it.
Yeah, strange.
Oh, okay, it's the same response.
It's my shy and delicate nature, innit? Yeah.
Alright, so that's pretty much it, isn't it? So we could ask something else, but we've probably... Yeah, we'll just draw this conversation to an end.
Yeah, do come back, especially if anything of a verminous nature that wants looking into. Or if you meet with any likely urchins that what wants to apprentice, yeah. I went looking for the ragged school, but they ain't to be found where they used to be.
Judging by the clock, I can afford one more errand day before supper. We're returning to the map. Oh, okay. What's that do? Is it replay? That's just the settings, which weren't very helpful. What does this do? Oh, that's auto... Oh, we don't want auto advance, no. We could go out again. We go to that proto... whatever it's called. Proto-martyr. Let's see what that is. St. Alban was the first English martyr, a point of considerable pride to the local vicar. It's the church of our parish. Alright, let's talk to the vicar. St. Alban's proto-martyr. This is the closest church to Horatia's. I've come occasionally, but not often enough to be known. We know that we are sort of known to the church from our background. Now you see the masters are meddling with affairs of the church. Giving cautious rein to my sense of humour. You must allow me to introduce myself. Boring Dad. Oh, okay, that's the same one as we did before. Theophilus Withenwick. It's a Yorkshire name. You can tell from my strong Yorkshire accent. Let's choose a question from my notebook, okay? Employment. We're going to be flirtatious with him, just because we want to see how it goes with the vicar. So, vicar, do you do anything besides overseeing St. Albans? From time to time, I've considered offering myself as a tutor to some enterprising pupils. My Greek and Latin grow rusty. But I never put the plan into practice. Now, as we see, the education of the young is no longer a primary concern in the best houses. Question? Household organisation. Ask flirtatiously. Does your household consist only of yourself, incidentally? I live alone in the rooms provided for the vicar of this parish. There is a woman who comes twice a week to clean, or there was. Her visits have been more erratic of late. Another question. Matters of the heart. And we're going to be flirtatious again. Perhaps you'll say it's no concern of mine, but I find I'm deeply curious about whether you're already committed to anyone. I was married. The lady was 2 or 3 older than myself, a very sensible and capable woman. Her name was Anne. And what became of his wife? Anne Withenwick. Oh, Anne Withenwick is no longer with you? It is a sad but not unusual tale. Use my authority to bully... This is a massive tonal change from what we've been doing, but... This badge means that I speak with the authority of the Ministry of Accounting and Recounting. Theophilus hesitates between 2 disagreeable prospects. I can't afford more enemies. Anne died giving birth to our first child. The baby did not survive her by more than a few days. I'd hoped to be reunited with them in the hereafter, but we see what the hereafter has proven to be, at least in my case. It seems the Almighty has deemed me unworthy. Challenge his theological interpretation. We've really turned this around. I doubt the Almighty takes that view. Vengeance is his, they say. We find ourselves here in the dark. Ask for a theological explanation of recent events. How do you reconcile the fall with the teachings of the Church? You know, don't you, where we are? This is hell, the dolorous city. Perhaps we have all died and come to judgment together. But those people with the yellow eyes, they are devils, fallen creatures who have come to tempt us. Offer some insights from past reading. The scholars of demonology record many levels of angels and devils. Even if they do belong to one of these orders, it would be hasty to assume we know their intent. I cannot comment on such esoteric sources. I know only what I've seen myself. One of them walked into my church yesterday as plain as a pikestaff and asked me for my soul. Just in those words too, like Mephistopheles offering a bargain to Faust. I told her where to go. Oh yes, it was a female devil. They make them male and female, or in the semblance thereof. But she just smiled and said she planned to be back on another occasion. Ask whether she left a calling card. Did she leave a calling card? I beg your pardon? In case you changed your mind about soul sales. I know where the devils congregate, but far, far be it from me ever to direct the unwary to their doorstep. Forgive me, but if you are curious, or worse, the merest contact with them could have the most severe and detrimental effect. Assure him that I'm safe to confide in. You can trust me. Come on. I trust you to warn people away from the place. I dare say you speak to many members of the parish who would never darken my door. He writes down an address. The trick will be finding the street. Devil's Townhouse. They say this place is inhabited by devils, or alternatively, people with yellow eyes and a warm handshake. What's going on? Something has landed on the roof. It looks down at us through the gaping hole above. Its eyes are glittering. Bat. Calmly ask whether it visits often. Is that thing a frequent visitor? Not precisely frequent. It's landed there a few times before, especially when the choir is practicing. Suggest it's drawn to the music. Perhaps it's musically inclined. Just as well the opera has been suspended in that case. It might have carried off half of society by now. The thing up there is gone. The tend-to-ground synagogue's in better condition than our little church. I've wondered whether that signifies the direction of divine approval. Tenter grounds, synagogue. An old synagogue, and one that has weathered the fall very well. Ask what happened to the roof. Ah, that. We must assume the fabric of the building sustained significant damage in the fall. The funny thing is, it held up for weeks, but shortly after Pentecost it all came down. I choose not to construe this as an intervention of the Holy Spirit. Remark that the church must have been very shoddily built. Cannot have been much of a church even before if it collapsed so easily. I am given to understand that much of London is in just such a state, or worse. I should finish preparing my sermon. It was good of you to stop in. Lord see you safely home again. Horatio will be setting out the food now. So what, we've got 2 census things then. So that's good. That's what we were supposed to get. Grizz is waiting for me. Whatever census forms you have ready, it is time to take them to Mr. Page's. Could we have supper instead? I'm famished. Mr. Page's has been expecting these all day. He is eager to see what you've made of the collection. Once I've shown you how to reach the ministry, you can come back on your own and turn in others. Grizz has me gather my papers. With luck, Mr. Page's will decide to keep you on. With that, she leads me outside and along down a side street that is no longer named. The way is serpentine, through streets that do not seem to lead towards the spires at the centre of the city. But each time I look up, it is closer. The spired building on the horizon, I guess it's this. Finally, we find ourselves standing in its shadow, under its walls. Before us is a low door that once, I think, belonged to a solicitor's office. Grizz takes out a key, made of something other than metal, and unlocks that door. Mind the pile of papers. I've already sorted them 3 times. Mr. Page's is very particular about the ordering of documents. Now, where has he gone? Usually he's here by this time of day. Ah, there you are, sir. We were just coming to bring you the census documents. A first instalment of many, I'm sure. Mr. Page's, may I present Boring Dad? Boring Dad, this is Mr. Page's. The whole Ministry of Accounting and Recounting is under Mr. Page's direction. Acknowledge the introduction. How do you do? Fertilus, with a soup sod of myrtilence. Oh, Mr. Page's has a surprisingly high voice for someone so large. I beg your pardon? Mr. Page's has been interviewing a Frenchman unhappily stranded on our shores before the fall. You can imagine how that might affect both mind and vocabulary. Wonder whether it was challenging for the Frenchman. Are you saying that the Frenchman suffered from an interview with Mr. Page's? The fall was a shock. We've written down the particulars of his situation. I'm sure the ministry will do whatever it can to assist him. Oh, high voice. I've no idea. What have you brought us? Hand over Archie's page.
Ah, most satisfactory. There are secrets here.
He gives me 2 shiny pennies for my trouble. I turn one over and it has a portrait of someone who is certainly not the Queen. The face on the back of the coin stares at me until the hair prickles on my neck. It reminds me of a debt owed. And I don't want to remember. And my breath hitches and slows and resumes. I'm holding 2 pennies now.
We did not expect much from Archie. Undercurrent Grizz is having already revelated that he is a lightless character.
Undercurrent?
What else is there?
Hand over a finished census page about Theophilus. Pages offers me 2 pennies from a jar, bringing my stash to 4. There are other coins in there, and a few things that aren't even coins. Buttons, pearls, probably false. A horse head carved from ivory or bone.
The quality of your information impresses us this time. Grizz specificated the existence of holy men who were wedded to the church. This one appears to have been wedded to a woman. Only... A disappointment. A woman only. A disappointment, though we thank you. It might have been something more.
It contemplates the final sheet of the census form again. Ask Miss Pages a few questions of my own. The census. Ask what the romance accounts are for. Why are you asking people about their romantic situation? Are you planning any related laws or regulations? I can't imagine that.
You may consider the love stories remunerant, in exchange for our generosity in the matter of food and clothing.
Discover whether Mr. Pages is looking for tales of a saucy variety. Are there any particular details that would enhance the pleasure of these tales?
Yes. If you are able to convey the flavour of the hearts, and their resistance to the tooth.
Metaphorically?
Ask whether the stories have to be true. Is it important that these tales be truthful? London is full of fiction. There are more novels published every year. And half the accounts in the newspaper are likely false as well.
One might experimentulate.
Ask what the census is for. What are you doing with the census information?
All of London's older records were destroyed in the fall.
Not destroyed. Rendered less than utilificacious. Many of the people counted are deceased. Moreover, the older records are missionary.
Perhaps it was time for such a thing. My uncle always said that parliamentary procedures have the dust of the Tudors on them. If not of King Alfred.
Ask how long the food will last. If the ministry has supplies of food, where do those come from, and how many more months will it feed us?
The census may provide us with a better understanding of requirements.
There are methods of additional acquisition. It is not value official for the people of London to starve.
Well, that's good to know. Draw conversation to an end, I suppose. Grizz accompanies me out again when it is time to go. As we make our way back to Horatia's, she asks me what I think of Mr. Pages. I think he's deeply suspicious. She tries to make it sound like an idly curious question. So I can't say he's deeply suspicious. Make light of his tailoring challenges. I tell her that I feel Mr. Pages must be a boon to robe makers throughout London. She replies that judging by the ink stains, she does not think he replaces his wardrobe terribly often. The rest of the walk is taken up with speculation about Mr. Page's taste in gloves and boots. Before we go back inside the house, she reminds me.
We have many more people in the neighbourhood to survey for the census. You know how it's done now, so you can collect them and take them to Mr. Pages yourself. I have other duties and I may not always be there, but Pages is... Well, I'm certain you won't be harmed if you visit the ministry on your own.
Note that her reassurance is not completely reassuring. No one ever says this kitten won't harm you. It's only dangerous things that we're told are safe.
There's a difference between things that can't do harm and those that won't. The latter are the more truly trustworthy.
At this point I go back to Horatia's. Archie is already at the table when I arrive. When he sees me come in, he gives a guilty start and scoops some of his stew back into the tureen. Hey, it took more than I had a right to, but I'd not eaten any yet. Apologies. Shrug and take a bite. I'm probably very hungry. I'm too hungry to decline dinner just because I took a sojourn into someone else's bowl. Hey, there was a lass who asked me to come round and look at her brother, a Jewish family. They usually go to their own doctor, but he's out of service or run away or something of that ilk. Their old synagogue was destroyed in the fall, so they moved to the Tenetgran synagogue. Rachel and David Landau. David has a stomach complaint, chronic.
Perhaps they have trouble cooking anything palatable. It isn't easy these days with what we have.
Hey, the sister's a beauty. She wouldn't leave the room when I sought her brother. Ask what David was doing. Will the brother live?
Oh, aye. For a bit, I thought it might be serious. But what he needs is his stomach settled.
Tell unnerving stories about meeting Grizz's employer. Grizz took me to the ministry. Her employer wears a cloak like a highwayman and keeps offices like a solicitor.
Oh, yes? Is the ministry very grand?
No, I wouldn't say grand so much as extremely unnerving.
Oh, they must be well-to-do if they've food enough to feed all of London.
I'm not sure Grizz is wise to work there.
Ain't he like the sound of them?
It does sound unusual. I admit some of Grizz's stories give me a turn, but you mustn't be too quick to judge. These people in the ministry might have different ways from ours.
Choose a question from my notebook. Horatia, matters of the heart. Flirtatiously ask whether Horatia had many suitors when she was younger. What was your romantic life like then, Horatia?
Oh, the butcher at the corner asked me a few times to be his wife.
Me mother would say we got to go and have a look at him and see if he was good for you.
I couldn't say I was tempted. He had 7 children from his marriage before. I believe he was more attracted to the extra rooms in my house than to me.
And that's the end of supper. Horatia stands and begins putting the dishes away. 232 days after the fall. Despite everything, there are still... Oh, okay. There are still broadsheets printed. Archie bought one, and the headlines read, Masters announced revised mushroom rations for hungry Londoners. Okay. So there we go. I think there's clearly a bit more of the demo. Maybe you've got another game day or something. I felt like that was quite generous looking at the sort of length of the video. And hopefully that's given you a flavour of what to expect from Mask of the Rose. As I said at the beginning, it's due out in early June, I believe, so about a month from now. So yeah, perhaps one to wishlist or go and check out the Steam page if you like the look of what was here. As for me, yeah, I think this is one that I will buy and play on the channel when it releases. It seems like quite a good fit with many of the games I've featured before, with, you know, strong narrative hooks. You know, I can do some of my own voices and accents that some people seem to enjoy. So yeah, I would say, you know, in around about a month's time, keep a lookout on Boring Dad Gaming for this. You know, I think it seems like a good one for me to cover. So thanks very much. If you enjoyed this video, as I hope you did, please do hit the thumbs up button. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Have you heard of it before? Have you been looking forward to it? I know that their previous games are some of those that have been the most recommended to me to feature on the channel. And as I always say, you know, it's games that, you know, I maybe would feature at a point when there are less sort of new games coming out that I'm really keen to do. But there are so many older games sort of in my list to feature that it's getting a bit crazy. It's getting a bit crazy. I'm already sort of doing 2 to 3 videos a day, but at some point I'm sure there'll be a bit of a lull in the new releases, and I can sort of start looking at some of these older games. But yeah, leave me a comment. You know, have you played their previous games, the Sunless games? Did you enjoy them? Are you looking forward to this? Let me know. And lastly, if you're watching this and haven't already subscribed to the channel, it'd be great if you could do so. It'd be amazing to have you on board. So thanks very much once again, and I'll hope to see you in other places, I should say, on Boring Dad Gaming, and maybe for this in a month's time. Bye for now.